Hi, Vic. Can you hear me?
Hi, Sarah. Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. How are you doing so far today?
Oh, it's been really busy since about 6 a.m. Yeah, just been pounding away at
Oh,
things.
my goodness, that's an early start time.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Well, thank you for squeezing us in today, too.
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, as long as it's on the calendar, it's going to get done.
Yes, that is so true. It doesn't exist if it's not on the calendar.
Yeah, it's so easy to forget about things.
hmm So
Oh,
I hear you just went to Alaska?
oh yeah, yeah. I just got back about 3 weeks ago. Just returned, and I returned with a very severe backache. So I am just now able to start moving around and doing things.
Were you like hiking and doing things outside?
Yeah, I did everything wrong. So I went on a hike beyond my abilities. I had brand new hiking shoes and I had a very heavy backpack.
I see. Wow. Well, I'd love to hear about it sometime. I also went to Alaska this summer, just with my folks. Our Christmas gift as a family was a cruise to Alaska,
Oh,
but we had a
yeah.
different experience than yours.
Well, did you take any excursions? Did you get off the boat?
We did, yeah. A lot of the cool sounding ones, honestly, were a little out of our price range, but
Yeah.
we toured some of the cities. Went to, I guess, the Mendenhall Glacier in near Ketchikan. And we went to a husky homestead, but we didn't actually do any mushing.
Oh,
um, but we got to learn about it and things. But and then we spent a long day on a bus in Denali, which I'm sure is the wrong way to do Denali, but
oh man. Wow. Wow, that is awesome. No, I saw the Mendenhall Glacier and it was my first time ever seeing a glacier and it was pretty incredible. It was just the colors are wild.
yeah, that striking blue color and
Yeah.
learning what's behind that, and yeah, and
Yeah.
we went. The ship went into Glacier Bay. I'm keeping track of. It's just us still so far. But and we got to see. I guess it's called calving when a glacier falls apart in
Yeah.
essence, or like when parts of it come off. So we got to see and hear that happen.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it sounds just like a big like thunderclap. Actually, it's a lot louder than you think it would be.
Yeah.
Anyway, so where were you spending most of your time?
Um, Juneau, that's where we saw the Mendenhall Glacier.
Yeah.
Skagway is where we did the hike. We went up through like the Yukon Pass or something. It was just they said it was moderate, but it was not moderate. I mean, by Alaska
Oh,
standards, I'm sure it was moderate, but
yeah. Well, if you saw the White Path of Yukon route trail or train go by, I did that. So
oh,
I
okay.
I saw right where you were hiking, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that train goes up a mountain and like to the border, right? To the Canadian border.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the hike that I did where I think I got injured, which is instead of doing what the train did, there was that a trail that goes the same route as that train, and
Uh-huh.
that was very, very difficult.
I mean, it's a neat symbolism, though. I guess hiking the same route the Gold Rush folks did, but yeah,
Yeah,
it was a
but
hard life to imagine.
you lose track of it. Like a lot of parts of this trail are unmaintained, and so I think it's called the Gold Rush Trail, and so you're going, and then all of a sudden it disappears, and you gotta have to find your way back to the trail.
Hopefully, you had a guide.
No, that's the other
No.
mistake. That's the other mistake we
Oh.
made.
Wow. Well, I'm impressed. Other than I guess hopefully your aches and pains you recover from them and it just turns into good good memories. But
Yeah, I mean the memories are awesome. It's yeah, I'm going to see a chiropractor, so that's part of my busy day is that when I'm done with this, I'm going to have some lunch and then go get an adjustment.
oh my, wow. I hope that helps. I've never had that done before.
No, this is the first time I've had it done now 8 times since the injury. But this is my first treatment of it, and it seems to be making a difference. I don't know.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it's helping.
Anything, yeah.
Um,
And anything besides the opioid. My other doctor, he's my regular doctor, just said, here, take some Percocets and you'll be fine.
yeah, yeah, it's nice to try something a little more actually healing instead of.
Exactly.
uh,
Yeah. Well, did you and Irmla review these slides? Is there anything you want me to adjust?
I thought it looked good, and Irma and I were on the phone actually when you sent the updated version, and she knows more about it than I do. She's been in the thick of it, but she thought
Yeah.
it all looked good. So I'm kind of taking her word at that, but I'm sure it's great.
Okay,
The
good,
way.
good.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, if there's certain points I need to hit on, just let me know and I'll get more active there.
Okay. Sounds good. And you're comfortable still, after I do your introduction, I will make you the host so that you can show your screen.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's fine.
Okay, perfect.
Is there, can I share screen before I am made host? I just kind of want to test that connection.
Hmm? Yeah, let me just do it right now.
Oh wait, I actually see a button here. It says share. Let's see what happens. Screen
Great,
two.
I see yours now.
All right, let's see if I can get the actual presentation up. All right, is that my cover screen, my cover slide?
Uh-huh.
Okay, good, good.
Okay,
All right, well, let me stop sharing. I know this works, and it is back to you.
okay. All right.
I'm going to go get a glass of water here real quick. I'll be right back.
Sure, thanks. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining. We'll give it a few more minutes in order to start on time right about 1 p.m. Eastern. You are automatically on mute.
Will do amazing things.
You should be on mute upon joining. We'll make sure to unmute you in order to ask questions as a group. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. We'll give it just a couple more minutes before we get started. All right, well, why don't we go ahead and get started? Vic, are you ready to begin?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your day to attend our 8th Thirsty Thursday webinar. As you'll see on the screen, we have Vic Ahuja with ThinkStep with us today to give an update on the California's AB262 bill or legislation activity. In addition, I do want to point out the many events that are coming up with the association. These are just the main meetings, but please keep your eye out as well for the additional Thursday advertisements as they become available. Most notably, Fall Conference, Blazing Executive Forum, and Glassfield coming up less than a month now, so we hope to see you all very soon in Las Vegas. To introduce Vic, he is a sustainability expert with nearly 2 decades of experience in guiding his clients toward their sustainability goals. With a background in environmental sciences and business, he helps some of the world's most prestigious brands demonstrate leadership by advising them on how to derive business value from sustainability. And Vic, I will let you take it from here.
Okay, great. Well, let me see if I can start sharing my screen. That would be the first step. All right, so you should be seeing my cover slide. Is that right for everybody?
Yes.
Okay, good, good. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Again, my name is Vic Ahuja. I am with ThinkStep, and I'm going to be speaking about California's new law addressing climate change. It's called AB262, and also going to be discussing the regulation that they're proposing. So California has signed a law which will create winners and losers for producers of steel, glass, and mineral wool insulation. The law aims to reduce California's suppliers' emissions by considering global warming potential in its purchasing decisions. The goal is, it's both exciting and encouraging. Just imagine that manufacturers would be investing in technologies and processes to reduce their impacts in order to sell more into one of the world's largest markets. But unfortunately, it's not quite that simple. If you've upgraded your equipment to use less energy or redesigned a product to include an innovative new material, you could still be excluded if California's calculation methodology doesn't consider all the complexities of calculating environmental impacts across a range of products. The reason we're talking about this at all is because we don't want you to find yourself excluded from a California Public Works project. The law's implementation and interpretation of it is now being finalized. And once it goes into effect, you'll need to demonstrate that your products have lower than average global warming impacts by the end of 2019 if you want to sell into government-funded projects. So in the course of this presentation, I'm going to be discussing the law itself and the calculation methodology proposed by California. And I'm also going to be talking about how the law will impact the industries that it targets, flat glass being one of them. I'm also going to be making some recommendations that we have submitted to the state also as part of their open comment period. But before we go there, let's go over some acronyms that you're going to be hearing as I go through the slides. So the first of these acronyms is DGS. It's the Department of General Services. DGS is the department that is going to be devising the regulation, how to implement the law. We're going to be talking about GWP. GWP is global warming potential, or in other words, the climate change impact that's calculated in the life cycle assessment. And that is a thing that they are regulating. EPD is Environmental Product Declaration. It is the external communication that is the environmental profile of a product based on that product's life cycle assessment. And that is the EPD is what the state of California, DGS, is going to be asking of manufacturers. We're also going to be talking about product category rules, PCRs. These are the rules governed by ISO 14025, which determine how an EPD is prepared. And a PCR, is a product category rule, is defined for each of the 4 material types that California is considering. So only EPDs which follow the selected PCRs are going to be considered. And those PCRs are for steel, the SCS, North American PCR for steel construction products. For flat glass, it's the NSF Ghana PCR for flat glass, and for thermal insulation, it's the ULE PCR for thermal insulation of building products. And I should mention also that there's some problems with these PCRs, but I'm going to be going into those problems as we get deeper into the presentation here. So per the law, in 2019, the EPDs will be requested. In 2020, they will be required. And the requirement is for facility-specific EPDs for selected products. The EPDs report the global warming potential, and the state will determine what the maximum allowable global warming potential should be. The state departments which will be asking for the EPDs include the DGS Real Estate Division, the Department of Transportation, Department of Water Resources, Department of Parks and Recreation, Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, the University of California, the California State University, and the military department. And the industries targeted by the law are structural steel, rebar carbon steel bars, mineral wool insulation, and flat glass. So flat glass, by definition, does not include any processing like coating or laminating. So this is just for the intermediate product that has not undergone any treatment or fabrication. But I would say this, just kind of as a heads up, that the fabricators need to be aware of the law also, because pretty soon DGS is going to settle on a way to regulate this law. And in 2021, they're going to be taking stock of how well the law worked. And once they realize that processed glass is actually the product that goes into their buildings, they will likely consider adding it to the list of products for which EPDs will be required. So as I mentioned, DGS is going to be regulating this. They're going to be setting a maximum allowable global warming potential. So how are they planning on doing that? Well, first, they're going to collect, this is their plan, they're going to collect all existing EPDs, that's EPDs that are published out in the marketplace or out on the web, for each of the product categories. Second, for each category, they will calculate the GWP baseline by weighting the EPDs according to the number of facilities that provided the data. And third, they will create the GWP compliance limit by adding 20% to the baseline. So the idea is that by adding 20%, they'll account for any inherent uncertainty in the LCA and provide a little bit of a buffer. So in the coming slides, I'm going to talk about the problems we see with their approach, but I don't like to just talk about problems. So I'm also going to talk about some recommendations for improvement. And these recommendations were given to the state of California in writing, both by us, by ThinkStep, and by NGA Ghana. First, let me explain the problem we see with how they plan on calculating the GWP baseline that I discussed in the previous slide. The most obvious problem is that if the baseline is calculated without accurately capturing the industry average performance, then the limit could be set too high or too low. So what happens if they set the limit too high? Well, then you could have invested in energy efficient measures or new technologies, but be unfairly blocked. Similarly, what happens if they set the limit too low? If they set the limit too low, then any polluting company, any polluting mill can be allowed in. So you see the calculation that DGS is proposing to use is of a weighted average, using the number of production facilities as the denominator rather than the production volume. This is problematic because the GWP for a given product is often directly linked to the energy use per product. There's also a problem of using multiple EPDs where the age of the background data might be different, or that different EPDs are using older PCRs, or that they're modeled using different pieces of software. So comparing EPDs could be a problem. There's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes of an EPD that makes comparing or using one against the other a bit of a complexity. So there's a lot of variability there, and that could also contribute to a bad comparison, an apples to oranges comparison. So based on those problems, the suggestion that we made to DGS are as follows. First, don't calculate the GWP baseline by weighting the EPDs according to the number of facilities that provide data. Instead, use the industry average EPDs for creation of the baseline, since they are production weighted and are created with consistent background data. Secondly, use an industry average baseline because you now have a single EPD where you controlled for all the sources of variability. And those sources of variability, again, being software, being background data, being the age of the data, being the PCR itself or modeling assumptions. Lots of different variability there. And when you do a single EPD for all companies, then you control for all those variables. So if you do that, you're closer to the 20% uncertainty number that the LCA community references. That said, if you want to compare results to a baseline, the other EPDs that you use to compare to that baseline should all be using the same background data, et cetera, all those other variables. So there's actually precedent for this approach. And the approach has been taken by the European Commission as part of what they call the Product Environmental Footprint, PEF methodology. But it's a very large and complex undertaking. It's involved the creation of European exclusive databases, and it takes significant effort to ensure that all products are modeled consistently. But again, we could point to a methodology that's been used where all the variables are controlled for. We also want to make sure that California is referencing the most current version of each PCR. So right now, the language in that bill just talks about the PCR, but we're encouraging them to use the term most current version of the PCR, because a lot of those PCRs are due to expire pretty soon. Okay, so now on to the matter of asking for facility-specific EPDs. Facility-specific EPDs are not typically published. What you'll find in the marketplace are industry-wide EPDs or product-specific EPDs, but not facility-specific EPDs, and there's a reason for that. First of all, if you were to publish a facility-specific EPDs as a company, then your competitors can get a decent estimate of your energy costs by back calculating your energy usage and the grid that it's coming from. So that's a confidentiality issue, and nobody really wants to discuss how much they're paying for their electricity. So that's why facility-specific EPDs are not typically out in the marketplace. Secondly, the problem with asking for facility-specific results is that it would require companies to put a complex traceability program into place. So manufacturers often sell products through distribution centers or third parties, which makes tracking it back to the facility difficult, if not impossible. So DGS would be requiring traceability like FSC. If you're familiar with WOOD, the Forest Stewardship Council, FSC or SFI, Sustainable Forestry. I'm sorry, I forget what the SFI acronym is, but it's a traceability program for forestry and paper products. And there's a lot of technical complications and a lot of cost implications. So we don't recommend that they ask for facility-specific results because it's going to require a lot of traceability. So even if you had a bunch of products across a given industry made at only one facility each, most companies really don't sell their products to a customer as coming from a single facility. When you buy a product, you typically get it from wherever the company decides to make that product. So for capacity, cost, or availability reasons, a company might ship that product from its closest facility or from completely across the country or even from a different country. So our recommendation to DGS has been to ask for product-specific EPDs, not facility-specific EPDs. If companies want to create facility-specific EPDs, have at it. That's their business. But DGS really should be asking for product-specific EPDs. There's a big difference between product-specific and facility-specific. The next point is about the intent of the law. They're talking about excluding products from California, not about giving preference for products with a lower GWP. And they're really not even talking about incentivizing products to get better. So as an unintended consequence for California, there could not be enough products for which qualify under this regulation that they could actually construct their buildings with. Our recommendation is to take a look at it a different way, maybe to encourage manufacturers to improve by setting a higher bar and rewarding those who can achieve it. If you want to block half the industry for being worse than average, I foresee many companies simply pulling out of the California market, since reducing their impacts would necessarily involve relocating production to a region with a cleaner grid, or they'll have to grow by a factor of 10 just to get economies of scale. So these are not easy decisions to make for a company, and none of these are really feasible or under the control of company management. There are other states working on similar laws. Oregon was working on a bill for limiting the GWP of transportation projects by monetizing the environmental cost of concrete, asphalt, and steel. So in Oregon, public improvement contracts are awarded to the lowest bidder. So there is an incentive for a manufacturer to lower their GWP so they're not monetarily penalized in the bidding process. The bill did not pass in its original form, so they're going back to the drawing board to find another way of addressing the GWP, but heads up, it's coming. Washington has tasked the Carbon Leadership Forum at the University of Washington with providing the legislature with policy options and recommendations in advance of their 2019 session. So they want to have options in place for 6 state-funded building projects that are currently in process. One idea that has been floated is to request EPDs that have GWP under a baseline, just like California is doing. And the industries that are being targeted under that bill are concrete, wood, and steel. But again, this is in process, and we're likely to see that list expand as State of Washington gets into their 2019 session. So our recommendation to DGS on the matter of exclusion versus preference has been to give preference to products with reduced GWP, but don't have any policies that exclude anyone from the marketplace. One final problem that we find with the law is that it is fundamentally wrong to focus on the GWP of the manufacturing of insulation and glass. The reason to use insulation is because of its use phase impacts, not the product manufacturing itself. So compared to the energy savings during the use phase, the environmental payback on most insulation products is a matter of days or months, not years. And companies who make insulation should be selling it to California for the energy conservation benefits of the final product, even if the insulation has a higher than average impact during its manufacturing. So similar, maybe a little bit weaker argument could also be made for windows. They have a more complex function in the building, but the insulating properties should be taken into consideration rather than just the raw materials and manufacturing. So our recommendation is don't exclude insulation or windows because of their manufacturing impacts. Use some other criteria like insulating properties, or don't exclude them from projects at all. All right, so these are some important dates as we near the end of the presentation. August 10th, 2018. Well, that's passed already, but that's when the deadline was for public comments. And ThinkStep made comments based on what you've seen in this presentation. And NGA Ghana made recommendations that were aligned, I think, pretty much right alongside with what ThinkStep had recommended as well. The next important date is actually in between now and January 1st, 2019. It's what the state of California is going to be doing in between in addressing these public comments. Now, we haven't heard anything back from them yet, but we suspect that they're going to be responding to those comments in the next few months, because on January 1st, 2019, they're going to start requesting EPDs of manufacturers of these products. And then by January 1st, 2020, not 2010, there's a typo here. By January 1st, 2020, they will not be requesting EPDs anymore, they'll be actually requiring them. So between now and 2020, we're going to be helping them to make sure that the regulation that is pending is well suited to the products that they are targeting, and that nobody is really excluded from the marketplace, and that this is smart regulation. And that brings me to the end of the presentation. I want to make sure that I left some time here for discussion. So if any questions, hit me with them and I'll do my best to answer.
Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to reclaim the host in order to unmute people.
I think I need to stop sharing. Let me do that. Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Do you have a means to make me the host again? Let me see here.
I think you can share simultaneously.
I just need it in order to unmute people, so. Let's see. Vic, would you mind hovering over my name, and where there's an option for more, click make host?
Yeah, let me try to do that. Okay, I had the power. My fault. I had the power all along. So I've unmuted everybody.
Perfect. So we're open for questions.
Yeah, so I just saw that Steve had a question here. So yeah, the bill has been changed a little bit in that they've extended the timeframes, and that is what AB 1817 addresses. So you have they've given us a little more time up until 2020 before they start requiring the EPDs.
Are there any other questions? Okay, well, I don't hear anything, so just for everyone's awareness, we did record this session, and we have been posting these on the members only site of glasswebsite.com. Those normally get posted within a week or so following the webinar, and is a recording of what we showed on the screen audio. So please keep for that. And again, thank you for attending, and we look forward to seeing hopefully many of you in Las Vegas next month. Thank you, Vic, for your time today as well.
All right, thanks everybody. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you.